Chatima Tova, Tzom Kal, I hope that your fast is going well. So as we are getting ready for the recitation of Yizkor, I want to share with you a few words before. As some of you know, I have a younger sister. She came to visit us with her husband and 2 children a couple of times. Today, my sister works as a Jewish studies teacher, but back in the day, she went to the University of Buenos Aires to become an anthropologist. Her main field of expertise was forensic anthropology. And I'm not sure if you know, but this is not a walk in the park type of field. We are talking about identifying bones of deceased individuals whose remains were decomposed and many times unrecognizable. The reason she chose this challenging path was to help finding the bodies of the desaparecidos, the more than 30,000 human beings that the Argentine military junta killed during the late 70s. There is a lot of kindness in helping grieving parents to find the remains of their children. There is a lot of empathy in giving back a name to people who were taken away by the military regime of those days. And there is something to be said about the resiliency of those who refuse to forget, and about those who continue to learn from history, so that we may not have to see some of its most shameful moments come back in our days. I thought about my sister and her involvement with forensic anthropology because a few days ago, I came across an interesting article that spoke about bones, about kindness, and about the many things we can actually learn from very, very old remains. But let me explain. In archaeology, there is a subfield known as bioarchaeology, which is basically the study of human bones and their burial sites. An important part of the job is to determine the sex, the age, and the health of those remains. In the article that I was reading, the author was quoting from a paper describing a burial site in northern Vietnam, in which archaeologists discovered a set of graves. Among them, they found a person who was curled in a fetal position, a very unusual way to bury someone. So after close examination, they saw that this person had fused vertebrae, weak bones, and other signs pointing to the fact that he became paralyzed from the waist down before adolescence. And yet, the impressive discovery was to find out that this person was not in his teen ages. He was in his mid-20s when he passed away. So the question is, how could someone like that survive for such a long time? 10 years in his condition wasn't something so easy to accomplish. How did he manage to get around if he couldn't even walk? How was he able to eat if he didn't have enough strength in his arms? According to the scholars, there was only one possible solution. The only answer that explains the riddle is that if this person made it that far, that was because the people around him took the time to care for him and to tend to his every need. If he was able to survive, that was because he had a support network willing to share with him some of their food and resources. If he had a life, that was because of his community, of his family, of his friends. The case of this particular person is not the only one we know of. There is enough evidence, the archaeologists say, to believe that at least some groups dating as far as 7,500 years or so, we understand that those groups were willing to help the chronically ill and the handicapped among them. Now, as you may imagine, life back in those days was tough, survival was a challenge, and compassion was not a given. And yet, perhaps, if we are still around as human beings, that is because we not only figure out that by being together we would have a better chance to outsmart those lions and bears who were out there looking for a quick bite, but also because we understood that we had a moral obligation to provide for the most disempowered members in our tribe. Thousands of years before there could be any talk about universal health care, some of our ancestors had the rightful intuition regarding the fact that a thriving society cannot and should not leave anyone behind. It might well be that our ancestors understood that whether we like it or not, most of us will probably become handicapped at some point in our lives. And all of us will have to deal with our declining health. And whether we like that or not, and I guess that we don't like any of that, anyhow, we won't be able to make it through if we lack the support of a reliable and caring system to be there for us. Today, we are and we should be there for others, as we also hope that others will be there for us in our time of need. And not only that, because today, on the most sacred day in the Jewish calendar, we come together to remember those who were always there for us. Today, we remember the members of our own tribes. We remember our own support networks. We remember our families, our friends, and every person who inspired us to be the human beings that we have become. Today we remember their words of encouragement. Today we remember the days when they told us that they loved us. And today we remember the moments in which we were able to find the strength to keep on going, because we knew that they would always be at our side. We remember their warmth, their voices, and their support. We remember their advice. We remember their devotion to us. We remember them, each and every one of them. This particular year, we have seen how many lives were lost to the pandemic. More than 200,000 lives in the US, more than 1 million worldwide, and many, many more who died from other conditions all throughout these past months, represent multiple worlds that disappeared, empty chairs that won't be filled again, and the grieving pain of families who in many occasions didn't have the chance to give one final hug to their dear ones or to fly overseas to attend to their funerals. British author Julian Barnes writes that death is the one appalling fact which defines life, and that unless we are constantly aware of it, we cannot begin to understand what life is all about. Well, these past few months have given us a bitter taste of that. We were pushed to think about death more often than we would like to. We were asked to deal with a lot of sorrow, and we were reminded once and again and again and again how fragile our lives are. And yet, now that we have gone through all this pain, now that we have endured all this sadness, now we may be able to use some of that grief as a wake-up call, as the wake-up call we need to reshuffle our priorities and to deepen our commitment to life. Because that is how, according to Judaism, we make sure that the memories of our dear ones will remain an everlasting blessing for all of us. It is in that spirit that I want to share with you a poem written by the Irish author John O'Donoghue. The name of the poem is For Grief, and this is what he wrote. When you lose someone you love, your life becomes strange. The ground beneath you gets fragile. Your thoughts make your eyes unsure. And some dead echo drags your voice down, where words have no confidence. Your heart has grown heavy with loss, and though this loss has wounded others too, no one knows what has been taken from you when the silence of absence deepens. Flickers of guilt kindle regret for all that was left unsaid or undone. There are days when you wake up happy, again inside the fullness of life, until the moment breaks and you are thrown back onto the black tide of loss. Days when you have your heart back, you are able to function well, until in the middle of work or encounter, suddenly with no warning, you are ambushed by grief. It becomes hard to trust yourself. All you can depend on now is that sorrow will remain faithful to itself. More than you, it knows its way and will find the right time to pull the rope of grief until that coiled heel of tears has reduced to its last drop. Gradually, you will learn acquaintance with the invisible form of your departed. And when the work of grief is done, the wound of loss will heal, and you will have learned to wean your eyes from the gap in the air and be able to enter the hearth in your soul where your loved one has awaited your return all the time. May God give us the strength to mourn for those who have left this world. May God grant us the ability to transform our grief into a renewed commitment to life. And may we always find the ways to remember our dear ones while we strengthen the ties that bind us to our own communities, and as we continue to be a positive presence in the lives of those around us. May the memories of those we are remembering today be a blessing for us. May their souls be bound up in the bonds of life eternal. And may God continue to be a source of strength and resilience to all of us, as God is with every mourner of our people and the rest of the world. Amen.